Ari!
Yes, Des?
What's a chrononaut?
A chrononaut is a time traveler.
Wow! I want to be a time traveler!
Ha! You can't.
Boo!
But our listeners can by listening to Time Pop. We record a podcast at a specific time and place.
And then the listeners can travel back and join us whenever they want?
Exactly!
So listen to Time Pop. We dive into a time travel-inspired pop culture property, usually a movie.
We discuss the laws of the universe and then uncover all the holes left in the world.
Time Pop! New episode every other Wednesday, plus dozens of classic episodes you and your ears can travel to anytime. I am Des.
And I'm Ari.
And this is Time Pop!
Hey, sugars. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. All the Answers podcast is, in fact, the best podcast that exists, so you've made a wise choice for yourself. Listen, are you interested in getting some divine light healing for yourself? Could you use some contact with beings of light that vibrate at a crazy high frequency? Have you always been curious about the light being races, the Arcturians, the Sirians, the Lumerians, the Pleiadians? Do you have no idea what those words mean? Maybe you want to join Katie Rubin for a 3-day healing retreat. The weekend of October 23rd, 2020, the year of craziness, in Sedona, Arizona. We will be gathering in person in Sedona for 3 days to up-level our frequency, heal our stuff, and just all around get lifted. Check us out, join us, email me directly, Katie Rubin herself, with any questions you might have. klrubin@gmail.com. K as in kiss, L as in love, R-U-B as in boy, I-N as in Nancy at gmail.com. Talk to you soon.
Welcome to that spiritual, actual, factual answers to questions he asking. You find them inside you, reciting the records of Akashic. We laughing, we drafting the passion through vary. It's time for that comedy, dramedy, all of the fanciest, catchiest acronyms. Listeners, listen, we traveling. Consciousness is always unraveling. The reading you're having is mapping you back to your natural habitat. Abracadabra, it's magicless, fascinating. To top it off, the host, all the classiest. Now, what were you asking for? All of the answers, what? All the answers.
Okay, well, I'm ready. Are you ready to dive in?
Yeah.
Sweet. Hello.
Hey.
You guys, I listened to our podcast. What?
Congratulations, Katie. I feel like our little Katie is growing up.
I'm a grown-up girl now. I'm a real adult. It's real.
How'd you feel?
It was, better than I thought I would. Like I think I shared with you guys that I've not been listening only out of like, I'm going to judge myself or I'm going to put some lens on it after I hear myself, like that'll limit it or be like self-conscious or something. I enjoyed so much of it. And the main thing, my only like constructive thing I'd say to me is easily fixable. So I was like, well, all right, we just won't do that anymore, which was that I noticed it's kind of embarrassing to talk about, but anyone who's listening, I'm sure, whatever, it's all out there. So what are you going to do?
Soul.
Yeah. Is I sometimes like it's a thing in my conscious life with my relationships with humans, not on this podcast, I'm pretty like conscientious about not trying to laugh when I'm not actually laughing. And there's a way that I was doing some polite laughs a lot. And I was like, ew, like, no, nah. And I like, don't do that because I don't like it. But I think I was just unconsciously doing that here.
It was all for me too. You're just trying to make me feel better.
Kinda.
Every time.
I mean, it's forever. It's just people pleasy stuff. It's just like, let's make people feel comfortable. And, honestly, it kind of comes back to like woman stuff for me. Like sometimes I'm uber aware of being the only woman in a room or like just aware of my womanness in relationship to non-woman things. And then feeling like, I'm a loud, strong lady and this is quote unquote my podcast that you guys are on it and supporting it. And I invented it. And I'm sort of uber aware of that and feel some guilt, which is a thing women go through a fair amount. Like, oh, there's men involved in this thing and I feel bad that I'm leading it. which
Yeah.
I would never support another woman to feel that way. And I don't want to feel that way myself, but it's a thing that comes up.
Yeah.
And so the laughy thing is like, let me make you guys comfortable, which of course presumes that you're uncomfortable, which I don't know that you're uncomfortable at all, but I'm certainly presuming it a fair amount.
Yeah.
Well, Katie, the fans want to know, which episode did you listen to?
Thank you, fans. Good question. I listened to...
They're all typing in on the message boards.
Right, exactly. We're going to get there. That's going to happen. Mark my words. It's called Matriarchs Aren't Born, They're Grown with
The
Joy.
most recent episode.
So many words in our title.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So it was really great. And then I was just enjoying us. We're fun, sassy people. You guys are right.
Yeah.
And I love what you're doing, Desmond, with taking out the pauses between things and the pacing of the whole thing. And I remembered that I love our song. I did have one. I was like, damn it. I want to go back and like fill that song's bass and drum track in. It feels a little Casio keyboard, like ting, 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 ting.
Yeah.
And then the rap is so solid. Like I thought, first of all, Carlos's rap is fucking badass. That guy is
Fire.
a fucking ninja. And then this woman, Versal, who did it for us, who performed it, how the fuck do you read that shit and hear that from someone and then make that happen out of your face holes? She's a fucking warrior. That is no joke to do. And then I'm like, there's this little ting, ting, ting in the background. And I'm like, nah, when we have all the money in the world, we're going to go back and fucking, there's going to be a symphony and timpani drums and like a marching band. I want like full
Thunderclaps.
sound. Yeah. Anyway, what's going on in Cassidy land? I feel like I'm out of touch with your reality. I know you're doing the play.
All right. So the play opened this last weekend.
Wow.
By the time anybody hears this, it'll have been running for a month, but there'll still be another month or so to run. So no loss there.
Grand.
It's been a heck of an experience because it's such a bizarre, surreal, like I feel like there's even things we could discuss in terms of like perception and connection and the way in which we are connected and aren't, and how we're changing that because of the necessity of physical distancing, which we should start changing that phrase. I think we should be socially connecting, physically distancing. Like that's
socially connecting, physically distancing. I love that. Good call. Yeah. I think did Rami post that?
Rami talked about that. Yeah.
I love
And it's weird that we've been calling it social distancing. That's
right.
Not. It literally should be called physical distancing. Like tell people, just stay away from each other physically. That's it.
That's right.
You're good.
You know, real fast on what you're saying, just for the audience, I'm sure there's people know if they're listening to this in order at all, but just for clarity, for people who might not know, you're in a play right now, and that play would obviously be happening in person, but it's not. It's happening on Zoom, including tech rehearsals and rehearsals, which, holy crap, man.
So everything we're doing is on a green screen. Every single actor is in their own home with a green screen, camera, lighting, rigs, sound up. And we all have the same equipment that they shipped us the equipment or delivered it to us.
Jeez.
You know, with gloves and masks and then we set up in our own home, and then we're all transmitting to a central hub. There's a guy on a massive computer setup who's taking all of our feeds, blending them and mixing them onto a screen so that we're all actually apparently acting in the same space.
God, I hate everything about that.
I know. But honestly, a lot of the feedback, people are questioning it. They're like, no, you guys are in the same room. That's awesome that you're doing that. But how are you allowed to be in the same room together? And we're like, no, we're not. We're just fucking geniuses.
That is fucking genius. Go your tech team. And I have another question. How is it that so many Hollywood projects are happening right now? Like, of course,
they're shooting separate. Like they're doing from what I understand, they're just not pairing people.
Yeah. Well, okay, because I'm obsessed with Dak Shepard's podcast. Yeah, he's on a set right now for Top Gear, and but he was talking very openly about how he's like our TD or whoever, some person's job is to everything gets wiped down. Everybody steps apart. You put the mask on between. It just seems like still sort of like a lot to do.
Right. And temperatures are taken every day that you arrive, and
they're getting tested all the time.
Contact tracing, and they're constantly. That's how they're doing it.
Okay, you're right. Yeah,
but it's still it's
a lot. Yeah.
But, and then there's like Georgia where there's no rules, and,
Oh, man.
and Atlanta is one of the biggest, is the new Hollywood. So,
Right.
but the unions are still inserting themselves in order to protect the workers. They're saying, wait, hold on. We won't allow our people to work unless you get these things in place.
I got you.
Okay.
So
And there's some squawk on that too.
Squawk on it, meaning
Like pushback.
Oh, from whom?
Well, Disney World reopened, and there's a whole lot of things. There are equity contracts, actors equity, the stage actors.
Right.
There are equity contracts involved with Walt Disney World, and the union said, no, you're not doing what, they have an epidemiologist on staff, part of Obama's team of blah, 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 infectious disease team. And so like equity is taking their guidance from a non-governmental source. But from a scientifically backed, medically backed person.
Okay.
And equity saying, no, what you're doing is not sufficient.
And
so our people can't work on that. So now the actors are like, well, let us work.
Oh, God.
So there's a little pushback of
It's
people desperate to work because they're feeling like their life is over.
Yeah, of course. That makes sense.
And equity saying we literally our existence is to protect our workers. That's why we exist.
Oh, God. I have to tell you the truth. As soon as you said that,
You fell asleep.
No. I love you. My impulse was like, God, I want to go to Disneyland. Do you know how much I don't like Disneyland? I don't like it. And I want to go.
Because it's something.
That's how... Dude, because it's something. I'm so understimulated in terms of, I was saying to some friends yesterday, like, I miss culture so fucking bad. Eric, my jazz musician boyfriend man, plays these like weekly online Zoom jazz shows. And just like streaming them, who are in their own little room and they're all separate from each other in the room, streaming it in my living room, I feel like I'm going to a rock concert and I am the hippest person that ever lived because I'm like, things are happening that people are doing. And I'm just like so thirsty for fucking culture. Do you have any of that going on, or are you feeling fulfilled?
Well, that is what, that's what our play is doing, hopefully, and people seem to be responding to it or feeling good about it.
Yeah.
So hopefully that, I will say.
Yeah.
I haven't been, like, I've watched some streamed things that weren't live.
Yeah.
Like, watched a play that they hadn't taped with the intent of showing it, but they had done a kind of a multi-camera shoot of one of the shows up at Ashland.
Yeah.
And we watched it and it was kind of unsatisfying.
Yeah.
It's like, it's in that gray area where it's like, it's not like when I watched Hamilton and it was satisfying because they shot it with that in mind. They shot it like a movie.
Okay.
It was still live, but they shot it like a movie. So it had that, it was, it was brought forward. But if it's just like shot, but it's just a play, but it doesn't,
no.
It's not live because it's not live.
Oh, no. See, I can't hang with any of that. That doesn't interest me at all. That's what I'm saying. It's like they're live musicians and they're playing live and I'm typing going like, great bass solo. And I feel like so alive from it. And those same guys, that band, they played, I don't remember if I told you guys, but they played on someone's back porch in Alameda because Alameda's doing this like porch series.
Yeah.
And so people just gathered on the street socially or physically distant. And we were all just like sitting in our lawn chairs on the street. I have not felt so happy this entire Corona time as I felt just sitting there watching live musicians play music. Just that feeling of like, you know what I mean? Communal, everybody's together.
Yeah.
Hanging out, watching the music happen.
That's I haven't gone to any porch concerts. I went to a porch talk where there was like a huge circle of like super distanced chairs.
Huh.
And it was a conversation. It was like a socio-political conversation being hosted they're doing a series of these around Oakland.
Oh. What was the topic?
This topic was shit. I think it was the artist.
Feces? They're just talking about feces?
Yeah, just shit.
Oh.
No, I think it had to do with like arts orgs as socio-political and social service organizations, like arts orgs as So,
Yeah.
and people, it was pretty interesting. But the point is, like, we were all distant, but they would pass around a mic to anybody who wanted to talk. And like the guy who was passing the mic had like a spray bottle, and like he was masked, and like everything would get sprayed down before it got handed off.
Yeah.
And he was the only one going between people. And, like they're being very careful about that energy, but just the energy of being in a space with people who were like bringing out ideas and sharing them in person.
God. Right.
Was, it was vibrant.
Yeah.
It vibrates. And I mean, I'm hoping that's partially, we're not taping our play. It's only being performed live. So when you're watching it, it's live. Like you're watching it only with the experience of it being live.
Okay. Then I'm going to watch it.
Okay. And it's really long. This is my warning. So you can watch it act 1 week and act 2 the next week.
Good
or
call.
Whatever.
Thank you for that.
If you feel like it.
I appreciate you.
It is. It ends up being like 3 hours long. So.
Also, I feel like it's not true, but I feel like every actor I know is in that production. Like, it feels like everyone's in it. Probably just because every actor who has a gig right now in the Bay Area is
the
in
only
that.
Actors you know who are working.
That's right. The only thing being marketed on Facebook is that show because it's the only fucking one happening. Speaking of just things feeling alive and amazing, we have such an incredible guest today.
Exciting.
I can't get a high-pitched voice about it.
How did you get? I don't know how to say her last name.
I know me either. Chasse?
We'll just ask her.
We'll ask
straight
her.
up.
She's a person.
Chasse could be.
I
Pot
hope
so.
I
don't know. Betsy Chasse, Chasse.
Betsy.
First name Betsy.
Potterberry. Betsy, step all change.
Let's make fun of her name before we get her on.
Perfect. Who was the director, or is the director, has been at various points, directed What the Bleep Do We Know, which is like such a seminal consciousness, you could say science meets woo-woo, film.
Yeah.
She's sort of just perfect for us. And it's really just Vanda. Vanda knows her. And Vanda,
that's how you got in touch.
Vanda said, hey, you should have Betsy Chasse on, and here's her info. And I said, hey, Betsy, step all change. Do you want to come on this thing? And here's what the thing is. I left her some voice memos on Facebook Messenger. And she was like, yeah, sure. That sounds great. That all sounds great. Let's do it.
Cool.
Which is great. And then looking at all of her stuff online today, just like, she's really a powerhouse. She's created so much content. She's got all these books. Let's see, I'm looking at her thing right now.
Oh, I was looking at her book, Sacred Cows. I'm definitely want to ask her about that. That sounds interesting to me. Like her own personal transformation sounds like even post What the Bleep Do We Know about like, oh, I actually don't know shit.
Yep. I'm fascinated. I also want to talk to her about, I'm excited to kind of bring up the idea of like, I don't know, there's so much about What the Bleep Do We Know. Like one, like I think about, let's see, what year was it made?
2005 or so.
Okay,
or 6.
I mean, dude, so it's 2020, and that's 15,
I know, I want it to be 21 as well.
Right? It's 15 years ago, and I'm thinking if we made, as a race, if a human made What the Bleep Do We Know now, what would be different?
Yeah.
And like just for her experience of life from 15 years is a lot. Like I change every 3 months in a way that I don't recognize myself. So I'm like 15 years. It's like A, that, and then B, like I really want to know what the making of it was born out of in her own life. I could guess, but I want to hear it from her. And I have this like, I think a lot of people of my ilk and maybe, I don't know, other ilks, when that movie came out, it was the feeling of it was like, I should just save this for when she's on, but whatever. The feeling of it was like, oh my God, someone has been in my head asking the same questions I'm asking and feeling frustrated by the fact that the science community can't listen to the spiritual community and the spiritual community can't listen to the science community. Why can't we understand that there is actually no separation here? Like, to me, that is the simplest, most obvious thing. And I know that that's a weird point of view to take. Not a lot of people take that point of view. But when that movie came out, it was like she was speaking for my soul on a point that I felt very alone about. Because I figured like me and 9 people are thinking this. And of course they weren't, it wasn't 9 people because it was so popular, and a certain culty I don't know the degree.
No,
of
it
the
actually
popularity.
made a lot of money. It was a big hit. I was
Okay,
reading
so there you go.
the old Wikipedia article.
How much money did it make?
It made like $10 million, which
Okay.
is not that big for a movie, but
Movie.
it's also big for an indie movie. It's huge.
And I wonder how much they put in.
Yeah.
Like, did they put $40 in and get 10 million now? Because that's a pretty big profit margin. Or did they put 9 million in? And that, either way, it's like so impressive. It really it really took off within the world of, consciousness folks. So yeah, anyway, all of that. I'm just thrilled she was interested in coming on and chit-chatting. And then I've listened to a couple interviews with her. She seems just like a sassy, amazing woman. So
Oh, good.
I'm excited we get to talk. She's just like alive and gives a shit and has a real transformational story of her own,
Yeah.
divorce and like, what am I going to do with my life? And then figuring it out and then writing a book about it and then writing another book about it and then making a movie about it. Yeah. So, all right. So you've got the play, you're at home, you've got your bubble of people at home.
That's, I've definitely reached I'm not in crisis at all. I'm just bored, even though I'm working.
Holy crap. Me too.
My energy is like needing to recrystallize, re-energize. And that's
reanimate.
And that's fine. I now have a little bit of space, although we're losing a cast member. So now we have to spend the next week,
what?
Rehearsing someone in.
No.
Yeah. So,
what happened?
It's just stuff, whatever.
Okay.
Life. It's intense. Like this project is super demanding and intense. It's not a bad story. Nothing evil or terrible happened. It's just by necessity we have to now. And it's one thing when you're in a regular play, you just have them show up and you just teach them the blocking and you're done. But
I know.
In order to rehearse her in, we all have to be there because all of our feeds need to be active in order to get her feed to work with ours. So then and then we all have to stand there and do our eye lines again for every scene that this new actor is in. So that's going to be fun.
Everything.
I know you hate this idea so much. You would be going mad.
I would lose my mind. I really would lose my mind. I'm not like proud of it. I just would lose my fucking mind.
Well, I'll tell you what, Katie, one of the things that I realized that we might want to talk about at some point, I found it interesting, was that in order to make it work for myself, I had to realize that I was in a solo show.
Okay, say more.
So when you're doing your solo show, you're standing on a stage alone, right?
That's right.
And you might have points of view. Either you're talking, sometimes you're playing other characters, or you're talking to other people, pretending to talk like we do in theater. We pretend, but you're pretending to talk to Karen, who just welcomed you into the grocery store or whatever, right? In your one-woman show.
Yeah.
So you turn to the left and you imagine Karen. You place Karen right
and
there.
You always place her in the same spot.
Yeah, and you got to be consistent because lighting, whoop. And you have to generate Karen to a certain extent within yourself. Yeah. Now, I'm doing a solo show that happens to have other actors' voices in my head, so that's good. Like, it's like I hired a bunch of other actors to do the other character soundtrack.
I get it. Wow.
I mean, it's not exactly the same, but it helped me
get on board.
To get on board with myself, to be like, stop expecting something to be something it's not.
Isn't that always the lesson, right? Anything I'm frustrated with forever, it's always that. It's always like, well, if your expectations or resentments waiting to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, thank you. I'm going to remember that.
Take it, run with it.
That is
live
so...
it. Love
I was having lots of resentments. Like, why aren't they standing where I need them to stand? Because we set that blocking.
God, expectations. Wait, get this. So I just led this 3-day healing retreat, right here in my old living room. Holy crap. I am like, that's another reason I'm like, let's go to Disneyland, is because I've like been sitting in the highest vibrational light for 3 days. I'm like, I need to like do earth shit. I like immediately when it ended, I went to Target and was like, I want to be a consumer. I'm going to buy a hot dog and a t-shirt because I can. I just needed to like feel my earth body and be like, I accomplish things and I move through space with my physical reality. It was just like, anyway.
But were you also having resentments with those people? Is that
no, but what I was going to say, thank you, is that there was a point where this topic came up, and I mean, I'm channeling the whole weekend. That's like 6 or 8 hours, 2 days, and then 4 hours a different day. It's a lot of channeling. Okay.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, what came through was they were talking about resentments are expectations or resentments waiting to happen, which I got from 12-step. That's just stolen straight from 12-step. And then they said also expectations are, it was called expectations are entitlement in a fancy costume.
Ooh.
Or not entitlement. Expectations are.
Oh, I like that one.
Indignance in a fancy costume. Indignance, that's almost it. That's not quite it. See, I channeled it. I don't remember. But it was like, you get to righteousness. I'm so loud. Righteousness. You get to be righteous, but pretend you're not. You're putting a costume on top of your righteousness, and it's all hidden behind the secret of your expectations. So if I'm there in rehearsal and I'm like, I'm righteously mad because they're not standing where I want them to stand, it's because I expected them to.
Right.
And it's like, well, drop your expectation and you have no problem.
Right.
But like, I mean, that's a nice, super easy thing to say with words.
But then you get into the problem of like, am I also just lowering my standards? And that's frustrating. Like, well, then it's okay if you suck. You're like, no, I don't know if that's okay.
That's right. But I have asked that question. I love that you said that. I've asked that so deeply and so many times of the universe that I actually have a new kind of awareness of a response to that, which is something like this. Sort of similar. This came up in Vanda's episode, but it's like, it's about how we're holding it internally. In other words, I can uphold high levels of standarding around a thing without being resentful that my expectations weren't met. In other words, I could go, oh, I prefer that we do a high version, a high standard version of this, but I'm not mad at you because you didn't automatically do the thing in my mind I needed you to do.
There it is. It's like you didn't live up to my standard that I placed arbitrarily on you. Like you weren't involved with that standard setting. So how am I going to be mad at you?
Well, and also like when you look at like, if you're the leader, right? When you're a director of a play, you've got to have standards. I mean, you're constantly, at least for me, I'm constantly dialing up the tightness on the reins and being like, okay, we need that a beat earlier. And you've got to enter from 3/4 downstage further. You know what? You're all standards all day to try to create an excellent thing. But there's a difference between resenting people for not getting the thing that is in your head versus collectively stating transparently, okay, we're going to do this at a pretty high level.
Right.
I'm going to be demanding a lot of you. A, I'm stating the expectations ahead of time.
Right.
And B, I'm saying to myself, I'm not going to resent you if you can't live into it. I'm going to just ask you to live into it.
Right. And there's an agreement too. There's the idea that we've agreed to this.
That's right.
So we actually do have in a sense, a social contract.
That's
that I
right.
would like to ask you to live up to.
That's where,
rather than this sort of external sense where I'm holding my own judgment behind my own screen going, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing of like spiritual people will get, they'll assume, or like when we're all trying to be quote unquote better people, we'll assume that the solution to not having expectations and therefore becoming resentful is to just drop all expectation. But I think it's about how we hold the expectation, and that we not hold it as an expectation, but that we hold it as a request when you're not the leader.
Yeah.
But if you're the leader, that's about setting the tone at the beginning and asking for buy-in and being like, listen, I want to function like this at this level. Are you okay with that?
Right.
Yes. Come on board. If that sounds too annoying to you, that's cool. I'm going to function this way. You can peace out. Love you. We'll do a different project where you're in charge and I agree to your terms.
And then there's a sense that we get into questions of like consent, because then it's like, I'm consenting to be held to that standard.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, thank you, please hold me to that standard. And then you can, like, I don't know if we'll call it judgment. You could lay your judgment back on me then. You know, that's a director giving you notes. It's like saying...
Yeah, but the judgment point is how they hold it.
Right. It's not, I'm not judging you.
The director doesn't have to hold it as a judgment. They can hold it as like, here's what the piece requires to function at the level I'm desiring to function at.
Right.
Judgment is where you go, you're bad and wrong if you don't do the thing I want.
Right.
Direction is where you go, please do the thing I want.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go like, oh, you can't? Okay, let's talk. Let's figure out a way.
Or let's find a way to have you do it.
Yeah.
Or help you do it.
Yeah. Betsy is hopping on right now.
Great. Bring her on.
I'm so excited. And I can't.
In a waiting room.
First question is going to be,
how do you say your name?
Chasse, tap dancy. There she is.
That's more like it.
Betsy Chasse. Thank you.
That was one of the options we went with. Good.
There's you could go, really it's Chasse, but we got rid of the French a long time ago.
We said that. We said Chasse. And then
look at you.
And then I said pas de beret, step all change.
Right. And we lost the accent aigu along the way somewhere. So, well, and I'm glad you're not recording this because I didn't feel like getting super all dressed up. I'm actually going to go swimming after we're done.
Oh,
we're only recording we're recording the audio because we have to, but yeah.
But not my face. So
no, don't worry about
my
that.
glasses broke the other day and they're crooked and I have new ones coming, but I have to make these ones work. So it's just been like that kind of week.
I hear you.
Oh, we're judging you though. Be fully aware of that.
I got my flower thing on. I got my fountain. Is that going to bug you? Do you want me to turn that off?
I don't hear it. Desmond, are you good?
It's fine.
It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Even if it creeps in a little bit, it'll be some nice ambiance.
It's nice. It's my sit in my garden.
Yeah. Where are you going swimming? I must know.
In my pool.
Oh. I thought you were going to be like, I'm in Hawaii. We're jumping in the...
God, I wish. Yeah. No, I am in Westlake Village, which is a little towny part of Thousand Oaks.
I'm actually familiar with it. I lived in LA for 5 years, which is where I met Vanda Mikulaka, and it's Mikulowski is what it is.
Mikulowski, yeah, I think.
It's not that hard. I like to make fun of it though. Betsy, thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
We're so happy to have you. We've been, of course, researching you and looking all your things up and reading all the things. And I know Cassidy and I both have dabbled back into what the bleep in the last couple days. And I feel like I could talk. We're only going to keep you for an hour. I could talk to you, I think, for about a week and a half. I have 700 things I'd love to talk to you about.
Oh, nice. I love that. I mean, we're not doing anything else right now.
Fantastic.
Not like there's anything else happening. I mean, I one of the things I do want to talk about is I'm launching with the team a really cool platform. Did you check out See Good TV?
Nope, do tell.
I saw that it existed. I haven't had a chance to check it out.
Cool. So that's my current project amongst some other things.
What's it called? Say again.
C, the letter C, good.tv.
And tell us about that.
It's a new streaming platform. So the founder, her name is Trina Wyatt, and she's was one of the founders of the Tribeca Film Festival and all sorts of really cool things. And she's been really passionate about film. And she was sort of thinking one day, we always hear we are what we eat, but are we what we watch?
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is we are what information we take in. It's a big part of what colors and creates our worldviews and perspectives and beliefs, blah, blah. So she decided to create a platform that's really focused on conscious media.
Mm.
And so our mission is to give viewers everything from a 1 minute to 2 hours, whatever time you got, bite into something around consciousness, conscious raising, uplifting, inspiring, informative too, educational too. But our purpose is, there's enough doom and gloom in the world. Netflix has cornered the, murder for hire plot series and the dark underbelly of society. If you want to know what's wrong with the world, you can totally go to Netflix and find it.
Jeffrey Epstein is getting plenty of coverage.
So we decided that we would like to create a platform for films that maybe do something a little bit different.
That's great.
And we're different than Gaia.
I was just going to say, how is it different from Gaia? Okay, go ahead.
So we're different than Gaia in that, it's a filmmaker based. So one of the things I do is acquire the films. And it's bolstered by a private networking group of almost 2,000 independent filmmakers focused on conscious media. And so we're discerning. We don't just grab everything. No disrespect to Gaia, but they have a tendency to take it and run with it no matter what it is. And we're also really not focused on we're science-based, we're fact-based, we're more interested in how is this going to transform the viewer in a positive way. So that's kind of our mission.
Okay, that leads perfectly into one of the first 90 million questions I have for you. Just thinking about what the bleep. I was telling Cass before you hopped on that I'm sure for many consciousness people, woo-woo folks like myself, this was a similar experience, but I felt alone, very alone at the time when What the Bleep came out, because of course, for me, when I was 8, literally 8 years old, laying on my bedroom floor, I used to stare at the little glow-in-the-dark stars I had on the ceiling, and I would think to myself, oh, I see. Science and spirituality, it's the same. They're just talking about energy and molecules. Like, that's obvious. And then you enter life, and the biggest battle between human beings is that you can't...
Dualism.
Yes, dualism.
Comes in.
Yes. And so I was like, wait a minute. Because for me, at 8, I went like, oh, that's clear. That's obvious. Let's build from there.
Right.
But then you go to the world and you realize, oh, we have to teach everyone that. That's not...
Did you ever watch Down the Rabbit Hole?
Yes, but I don't remember a lot of it now.
You have to watch it. If you go, I think, onto my YouTube channel, the opening is there, I think.
This is the sort of director's cut reimagined. That's what I was watching this morning.
Yeah. So the opening, there's a really funny, I say really funny, because of course I made it with my friend Gabby.
Yeah.
And my other friend Melissa. When they were going to release, so I mean, I'm just a filmmaker on What the Bleep Do We Know. Originally I did all the distribution and everything, and then the movie, like, because it's a business, got sold, and actually Gaia owns it now, and I have no say in any of it. But at the time, they were going to release the Down the Rabbit Hole version, and they kept calling it a part 2, and I'm like, this is not a part 2. This is the director's cut.
Right.
Like, it's not. If you keep telling people in theaters it's a part 2, they're going to get annoyed with you. But nobody listens to the filmmaker. What the hell do we know, right?
Right.
So I made this. With Will wrote it, and then I made this this Monty Python opening that really literally describes what you're talking about, how
I know
science and spirit split, and it's super fun, and it's like 3 minutes. So if anybody wants to know the history of that, they can learn it in 3 minutes.
What amazes
and see
me,
my daughter as a baby and all my friends with pictures of it and stuff like that too.
So. Perfect. What amazes me about it is that. See, to me, I just experienced human beings having that duality functioning within them. I wasn't even aware that there was a historical moment in time where a human man invented the concept of I would imagine that dualism just is operating in people, and that's people's go-to, and that's why we wound up with that. But your video,
no. I think part of why we're in such a situation right now is that there's a constant struggle between heart, soul, and then the reality that we operate in. Because the reality that exists right now is not conducive to the true human nature.
Yep.
True human nature is kind, giving, supporting, loving, inclusive. But we've been bombarded with messages and imagery, going back to We Are What We Watch, that tell us we should be different. We shouldn't be different. We should judge people that are different. We should be afraid of people that are different. We should, anything that isn't, you're either anything that isn't in the Bible is, bad, or anything that science can't prove is bad. So we're stuck in this place where we can find no peace.
Yep.
Right? Because we're constantly like, how do I reconcile what I feel, what I know deep in my heart with what's going on outside? So that's, I think dualism, this separation is on its way out. I personally don't think it's going to, happen this November. I think it's going to take us a few years because we're hitting.
You want to know what I get from my guides about it? How long it's going to take for dualism to die? 2 centuries.
From now?
From now.
Oh boy.
It's going to be a rough ride for the next long time.
Yep. In 200 years, if humans keep sort of aware at any degree of what consciousness is already doing, because by the way, from what I see, consciousness is just doing what it's doing. People are either going to die off or follow along. It's pretty simple. People think like we are consciousness. It's like, oh, that's charming. You're a carrier. Consciousness is occurring through the trees and through the air and through your body and through that car out there. And so humans can either like hang on and up level with it or fucking peace out.
Right.
That's just what I see. So my point being, what they show me is that like in 200 years, the folks who are like, okay, I'll keep raising my heart vibration, staying in my heart, listening, tuning in, showing up at this level of frequency and consciousness, then they'll be able to function in a harmonious from the heart way.
Well, and if you think about that in terms of science, here's something cool. So I look at this as the plane of experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? We were given senses. We can taste, touch, smell, eat. We can experience.
Mm-hmm.
So this level of the game, let's call it a game,
Uh-huh.
right? And you're playing your different levels. This is the plane of experience where
Yeah.
we little beings
Yeah.
get to touch, taste, smell,
Yeah.
Cry, suffer, all the different things. We get to experience it viscerally.
Yep.
Right. And if you look at history, like every couple 100 years or 100 years or so, there's like a downfall and then a regroup.
Right.
And then an up level.
Right.
Sort of like, you update your computer system.
Yes.
And then if you think about evolution, like I look at my kids today. I had this conversation with a friend of mine who was thinking about writing a book about gender. And she said, I want millennials to read this book. And I said, millennials don't care about gender.
Yeah, they don't need it.
They don't even need it. They don't even conservative millennials don't care about gender.
Yeah, they're past
because
it.
It's gone.
They're
from their,
past it.
They look at us like, why are you people even having these conversations?
Totally.
So that's what up leveling is, and it's happening.
Yes.
Regardless of whether, my daughter has friends that her parents are conservative, and they think they're conservative, but they still don't really care who you sleep with, what you call yourself. Like, I just say I'm a unicorn and be done with it.
Yeah.
And they're like, cool, like whatever. I don't know who's straight, who's gay, who's up, I don't care. I call them all my little unicorns. I'm like, you are a unicorn, next.
Yeah.
And they don't care. So that's an example of just this evolution that's occurring, and the cycle just keeps kind of repeating. So we're in a down.
That's right.
And it's gonna be a little ugly and a little rough, and you just gotta hold on.
Yeah.
Breathe. A lot of breathing.
Or you could say, let go, breathe.
I get, my daughter's like this beautiful rebel. Like, the girls that came in like in the last 20 years are like pissed off and fucking over it. They're like, we're moving this shit along. You women are taking too damn long for this evolutionary shift. We're moving it quicker.
Yeah.
So she's a rebel, and she's passionate about politics, and she's passionate about her beliefs. And I think that's good.
Yeah.
But
see, to me, the letting go and the holding on they're co-concurrent. In other words, like what we're letting go of is like fear and the need to just fear, really. The rest of it is like show up for what the light, if you will, or your consciousness or science or whatever the fuck you want to call it, show up for what is required of you at the next stage of development of consciousness. Right. Why not?
Well, and the thing about fear is that fear gets a really bad rap. And I don't think fear is that bad of a thing if you understand the purpose of fear in this incarnation.
I think there's two kinds. There's the fear that is useless and the fear that is incredibly important.
Right.
So what were you going to say about that?
Rational fears and irrational fears.
That's great. Yeah.
The way I look at them.
Yeah.
I talked to my son about this a lot, because my son and I have a lot of irrational fears. Like, I hate heights. I don't like to fly.
Yeah.
So my poor son, I make him, like, we just went kayaking 2 weeks ago because we both have this slightly irrational fear of the ocean. Like, some ginormous beast is going to come out and eat us.
I have that.
So we I said, we're going to work through our irrational fears. But I said, in the midst of that irrational fear, is a good fear.
Yeah.
Telling you, hey, you should be cautious here.
Yeah.
Hey,
don't
go
drown.
slow here.
Yeah.
Make sure you wear your gear.
That's right.
Like that's the rational fear.
That's
going,
right.
Hey, just be conscious and be aware while you're doing whatever.
Don't run across the street just without looking left or right. The cars can kill you.
Right. So, the issue is that I think it was my daughter or one of her friends who asked me, because like shit's just fucking weird right now. People are just, heads are exploding out of their like it's like brains are on the street right now everywhere.
Kind of literally at times,
like for real. But like wonderful people that were totally rational, just like normal people. Maybe they were a little too woo-woo. I'm a very like grounded, I can go anywhere with you. I'm pretty chill about it, but I'm pretty grounded and chill. And like they've just lost their mind. and they're going way down these crazy ass rabbit holes. And
wait, who are we talking about now? What can
like just like, okay, Q people or just like conspiracy people. And
Yeah, the QAnon folks, pretty
what
insane.
is Q people? I don't know what that is.
Oh, the QAnon people.
What is it?
They're fun. They actually believe that like people cut off the faces of babies and drink the blood from their pineal gland.
Okay.
And that the Clintons have a baby selling market in the basement of a pizza parlor.
It's
a pizza parlor which literally doesn't have a basement, by the way.
Right. I know. So, but the point is, I do these things called Betsy rant all the time on my Facebook page, and I'm like, we don't need this stuff. Like, it's already fucked up enough as it is. We don't need to add like the weird, crazy shit. But humans are naturally superstitious. We're naturally, because to go back to your original dualism, because we've cut off for the most part any connection to spirit.
Right.
We're constantly looking for a way
That's right.
to reconnect
That's
that.
right.
And so we're going to go to these wild, weird beliefs because we think it fills that void of our lack of connection to consciousness.
Yes, absolutely agree. Or we're going to go to uber rationalism that has no spirit mixed in with it.
Right.
I'm like the woo-wooiest person who's about integration that you'll meet. I'm about integrating spirit into body. I don't think we embodied in form on the planet to be like out of our bodies and just living on planet Sirius and just be an insane woo-woo people. But what I've found is that you can, for me, the work I do with people, I just spent 3 days leading a fucking out there 3-day retreat in my living room here. But it's out there in the sense of where we're pulling light from, but it's very right here in terms of the purpose of pulling light. I'm interested in bringing light from the Syrians and the Pleiadians and wherever the light wants to come from to help people integrate and heal their shit so they can function properly the way the machine of their body, mind, organism is meant to function. I'm all about integrate into the fucking body. You're here in it.
Right. I always say to people, it's super easy to have an out-of-body experience.
That's
Can
right.
you have an in-body?
That's it. And so many woo-woo people don't want to embody. We spent a good...
No,
it's uncomfortable in the body.
I started to do this spiritual shit so I could tell everybody that I'm an astral plane. Like, I'm astral planing. Like, that's the sexy, cool stuff.
I know.
The real work is when you start to go, whoa, like, I have this weird ass belief and I don't know where that came from. Like, I've recently just gotten into constellations.
Oh, so good. I love it.
So cool. And I've known a little bit about it, but I'm working with somebody helping her write a book and she's amazing. And she's just like downloading all this information to me. I'm like, that is,
Is this just so for our listeners, the constellation, are you talking about like the family constellation and stuff that has to do with all the, so it's not necessarily stars and astrology.
So it's what she calls it is systemic work and constellation.
Yeah.
So what's really fascinating about it is because you talked about science, and here's what I always love, because I didn't even go to college. Like, the fact that I get to interview the scientists that I get to interview is shocking. It's just so random. Like, and I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm really fun and like, I don't think it's because I ask great questions. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Is usually what I say to them. But if you think about epigenetics, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then you look at systemic work and constellations.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing.
So can you tell the listeners, what is systemic constellation work?
Okay. So basically the idea of systemic work and constellations is the idea that you are in a system. This is a system. And your ancestral history. So constellation work came from a guy whose name starts with an H, because I'm not the scholar here, but it's like Hallenberger or something. He was a Catholic. He went to Africa to work with this particular tribe because he thought he was going to, change them over to being Catholics.
Yeah.
And they worked him over.
That's
actually, is what happened.
Yeah.
And because, in a lot of African culture, ancestral history is extremely important to who you are, and not just your direct mom or dad, or maybe your grandmother, but like your entire lineage has a direct impact to who you are.
Yep.
So that's basically systemic work and constellation, is the idea that when you're here and you're operating, you're carrying along with you your entire ancestral lineage, their beliefs, their patterns, their events, their feelings are all dropped into you.
That's right.
Hence epigenetics. And so you are oftentimes unconsciously operating with all of that stuff. So when we talk about the idea like, wow, I have this belief system, where did you get that belief system? It's entirely possible. Like an example in epigenetics is, they did a study of ancestors of the potato famine. And they found that the ancestors of the potato famine were more likely to have diabetes and be obese because their ancestors starved to death.
Well, this is the work I do. This is exactly the work I do, 100%. I'm just going to pause for just a second because for people listening, just a little more context. The way human beings work with systemic constellation work is the facilitator creates like a space in a physical room. Or I've actually done it one-on-one, which is a trip. But anyway, there'll be a room and a lot of people gathered, maybe 5-10 people. And each person, so we'll say like, okay, we're going to work on Katie today and her limiting belief about why is she overweight? So your example, right? So Katie will stand in the center of the room or sit wherever the facilitator has you sit. And then the people gathered will come into the space. There's like an intention set that the space is a representation of the entire system of Katie. So the individuals step into different spots in the room and magically, it's incredible to watch. Shit starts to happen to different people. And you discover through the process that, for example, maybe John steps into the circle and he starts spinning to the right, spinning. Well, it turns out he's clearing all the perpetrator energy in Katie's lineage. Right. Then Janine steps into the front right corner and she starts crying. And it turns out she's grieving everything that Katie's great-great-grandmother never could grieve because the people are literally standing in the energy, you could say, or the consciousness of some aspect of Katie's system.
Or the constellation.
That's exactly.
Where it comes from.
Exactly.
And the idea is that oftentimes when you do constellation work, like I might say, okay, Cassidy, you're going to be my dad.
Yeah.
Right. And you're going to do this and and we put people in as like part of your family or maybe your work environment or whatever you're working through. It's really fascinating. I did a constellation on a screenplay.
Oh, I bet. I hear you. I've done it.
It was really fun.
Like
cool.
You just broke apart your screenplay to help yourself write it, or you actually in the screenplay used the concept of constellation?
I had to help me write it. And actually for my book, because my question for the Akashic Records is one of them is about my book. So I wrote this book. It's called Killing Buddha. And it's, I'm not shy. And I say things that probably a lot of people wouldn't say, especially woo-woo spiritual people. And so, to call my book Killing Buddha was like, people are like, you can't say that. I'm like, I can totally say that if I want to.
Yeah.
And it's based on a famous Zen koan. So,
do
some reading.
Come on.
Right? Like,
Buddhas love to kill Buddha. That's a big deal.
So,
but for your screenplay constellation, was it characters in the book that were in
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I did was I put the main 5 characters up and we did it with them. And it was like,
mind-blowing.
Yeah, it was cool. It was really cool.
Awesome.
I encourage anybody to do it if you can. It's like
so.
And again, the thing about it is that is it woo-woo? Totally woo-woo. But if you look, it's totally based in neuroscience, epigenetics, genetics, DNA work. I mean, it's all there. It's easy to correlate.
I know, it's so easy. And people just don't want to. People want to separate. They don't want to correlate. The mind is in charge. And we're in the middle of the death of the mind being in charge, from my point of view. I mean, it'll take, again, 200 years. But hey, we're starting it or continuing it. Really quick, though, just to say the work I do. So like I'll be in the records with someone. And for example, I don't know, some issue will arise or some energy wants to clear or they have some stuck belief or an injury or a disease. And I'll look at it and be like, oh, look at that. That's from 8 generations ago, or that's last past life, or that's trauma from this life, or that's an alien implant. For real.
Right.
But the thing is, all of it is just clearing that energy. I'm not interested in people will call me and be like, okay, in my 3rd lifetime, 3 lifetimes ago, was I a priest or a nun? And I'm like, none of that is relevant. What's relevant is how is your life going? And does the, right? And does the lifetime where you were a priest, I will clear it for you and I will tell you what I see, but I'm not going to sit here and just jerk off with you about how metaphysically interesting it is.
So I have a platform called Spiritual Porn, and that's one of the things that we talk about is spiritual masturbation. It's like, because that's all people want to do is they want to talk. Like, have you ever noticed when people talk about reincarnation, they're never like the, houseboy. They're always like the queen or the prince.
Right.
They're always royalty. Like,
yes.
I'm like, I was like, the wench that got, that cleaned out the bedpans for sure. Because I'm such a clean freak now. Like, I must have been a maid because, like, I'm so fastidious about it.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Cass? I cut you off. You were going to say.
I was just going to say the thing about like how we try and separate ourselves from those things, but I've always been of the theory that like science, this goes to the nature of the dualism and the separating, that science in a lot of ways just hasn't caught up. Like,
yeah.
100 years ago, what we thought of as, spirits, we now measure as a biome or something like, something, an infection in the body. We called it one thing, but then we learned how to measure it. And now we can see it scientifically, but the effect was still the same.
Well, I've had that experience like 700 million times with my dad, who is a high-level scientist working in the world. And he'll come to me. I told you guys this story, Cass, but he came to me 10 years after. One time I went to my dad when I was really struggling in my early 20s, and I had done some biofeedback work on my brain, and it helped change my brain. And it was just like a guy in his closet with a biofeedback machine that he like stuck a thing on my head. And I was like, do whatever you got. Western medicine sucks. And he did the thing and my brain got better. And I was like, Dad, thinking like ignorantly, he's into cool sciencey things. Look what happened to my brain. Guy put a thing on it. And he was like, oh, it's bullshit. There's no research, nothing to support the research. 10 years later, he's the CEO of a pulmonary research institute. And he messaged me and said, we started this whole brain wing of my company. And now we're doing this brand new thing it's called biofeedback. We're going to put a thing on the brain. And I was like, Dad, remember that's the thing I told you about that I did on the hill with the weird guy in the closet? And he was like, huh? No memory of that conversation.
There's a great quote. I forget who it is. And it said, science evolves one funeral at a time.
That's good.
Wow.
And just to give you a fun example. So I interviewed the guy that found the God particle, David, I forget his name now. I'm so bad with names. Anyway, he hated what the bleep.
Wait a minute. And found the God particle?
Yeah, he's one of the scientists on the team that found the God particle.
And can you talk a little bit about what that is in a second when you're done telling the story?
Yeah, I can. I don't even understand it anymore. I have to be really honest. I'm not even a nerd of it because they don't like to call it the God particle. They called it the Higgs boson.
Okay.
So they don't even like the God particle. They're like, that's just marketing. Anyway, he's like a hardcore physicist dude. And I got to interview him. There's going to be a garden.
I know. I'm like, what is that? Is someone mowing your lawn right now?
I don't know what they're doing. It's like obsessive around here. They seem to constantly be killing whatever they're planting. I don't know what. So he said this. The one thing that I got him to say is he was a lot of these hardcore scientists are just not into going there. They're just not into, they want to keep it on the page, what's measurable, what they can see, because that's how science works. But he did say this to me. He said, he said exactly what you said, Cassidy. He said, the trick with science is that it's all about, can we measure it? And if we don't have the tools to measure it, the one thing that you can guarantee is that if it's out there and we really think it's out there, we're going to focus on creating the tools to measure. And if you take that into consideration with science, like I have a friend who's super hardcore science dude, and he's like, that's fact. And I said, even scientists will tell you, this is what we know now.
Yeah.
They won't say, this is it. They'll say, this is what we know now.
Right.
That's how science works.
Right.
You can't always look back and go, well, if science hasn't figured it out, it must not be true. It just doesn't work that way.
It just hasn't caught up in a lot of ways. And there are things that science can, in a sense, disprove. But most of the things that we're still struggling with is things that science has gone like, well, we can't prove it, so it's not real.
Yeah.
No, you just haven't. They also haven't disproven it either.
Yeah.
They just failed to prove it.
This brings me to my question about what the bleep, which is, I was wondering, Betsy, like, thank you. Whew, it's really loud. I'm sorry to be. I was going to ask you, it's like when you look at having made that movie 15 years ago, I'm like, I wonder today, if you were going to make that movie today, like how much would be different and what new science is there and what other people would you have involved and so on and so forth. Have you thought about that? Is that a thing what do you think about that idea? Because I look at it now and I go, man, you've got so many top level, these physicists, and like, I give you so much credit too for in the film, you really let these guys go deep into the physics and the science and the everything. And you're really trusting the audience to go to some deep smarty pants places. And those of us who want it, you're trusting the audience, which is what we're supposed to do when we make work, but you're really doing that. And then you had it was so successful that like, it gave me a little hope for humanity because people could hang with these physicists for a second. Anyway, but looking at that, what do you think about that? Like if you were remaking that film today?
God, I haven't thought about that because I would never try to remake that movie again as long as I live on the planet. I did it once. And a lot of people go to me, you should make a bleep 2. And we were going to make a bleep 2. And then I wanted to go one direction with bleep 2 and everybody wanted to make another exact same thing as the bleep. And I just was like, we already made that movie. So, but there are other movies. Like right now there's a movie called Infinite Potential. There are a lot of good, one of the cool things that the bleep did and that I'm really proud of, besides being just this wacky, crazy movie that everyone told us nobody would go see. Mm-hmm. And we were just like, we're going to do it anyway. Mm-hmm. Was that it, for better or for worse, it could be both. It opened up the conversation. Yep. And so there are not maybe millions, but there's literally hundreds, if not 1,000 or a couple thousand documentaries and films that explore these concepts now. Yep. And, the thing about bleep, people always ask me like, wow, like that's amazing. How did you do that? And the truth is, we did it mostly because the bleep was successful because we were genuine in our curiosity. And it didn't matter whether we failed because we were kind of already a failure. I mean, who puts quantum physicists and Marlee Matlin together in a movie with a bunch of random animation? Like, it's just like, who does that? So there was really no place to go but up. Right. And the other reason is that we had money. I mean, Will Arndt funded the movie and we had plenty of money. So people always ask me what makes a successful film. And I tell them 2 things: money, authentic creativity, and money. Yeah. Yeah. Like, that's it. Yeah. So that makes sense to me. And when it blew up, people always like, oh, you should make this, you should do that. I'm like, I don't know that I could ever recreate that again. That makes sense. And I don't want to create that again. Yeah, you did that. I kind of did it. Yeah. Like I had my Akashic records done and I've had my charts done and all this stuff. And they're always pretty consistent, which I think is really interesting because they always tell me like, you have 3 massive projects in you. And the first one was the bleep. And so, but I'm also the kind of creator that I'm not looking to go back into that. Killing Buddha is a funny sort of very fictionalized version of the making of What the Bleep. Oh, interesting. It's like, what happens when the least spiritual person on the planet gets hired and makes, because that I produced porn. Nope. Like, yeah. So it's just completely bizarre that I was like, basically porn, softcore porn. Remember those late night Cinemax movies? Yeah.
Skinamax.
That was my career. That's what I did for a living. And Mark Vicente, so there's 3 filmmakers on the bleep. There's Betsy, Will, and Mark. I was like the vagina between the 2 balls, basically. and so Mark knew me because I was a producer and I used to hire him as a DP. And they were trying to make this movie for a year and a half. It was called Sacred Science. It was the dumbest movie you've ever read in your life. It was like these 2 guys, and finally after a year and a half of putzing trying to make this other movie called Sacred Science, Mark says, we're going to call this girl Betsy. And he came to my house and I had quit making movies because I was tired of schlock filmmaking. And I had started a company making gourmet dog treats. And I had a company that made gourmet dog treats and I was going broke. And he comes to me and he's like, I want you to make this movie about quantum physics and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, let me see a script. So he shows me the script and it's the worst thing you've ever read. But there was what they were going to do was they belonged to the Ramtha group, the group. And so Ramtha had speakers come.
Okay.
So they were going to take the videos of the speakers
Yeah.
and edit those, not do interviews, but edit those around these weird Saturday Night Live skits. That was the script.
Oh boy.
With a host. They were going to have a host.
I'm confused.
Yeah, it was very confusing. Anyway, I read in the script that I got, there was an excerpt from a talk that Candace Pert gave. And to me, she's written one of the most profound books on understanding how to operate this body. It's called Molecules of Emotion.
I know this book.
And yeah. She's passed away. But if you really want to, like, I say skip reading half of the books written in the last 15 years and go back 40 years, because there's some real interesting stuff there. But I read what she said in the thing, and what she said basically was, you keep recreating your life because you're addicted to the emotions around it.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I teach all day, every day.
Like, but this is me,
coming out of porn,
30 years old, coming out of porn, and I was like, wow, because I was like, I'm not going to make this dumbass movie. What do they want from me? Like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
And so here's the whole story. I just hear the people have always fascinated by this. So here's what happened. I read the script. I call Mark back. I said, all right, I'll talk to the guy, Will, whatever. And so I get on the phone with Will, and we have this really interesting conversation, and he wants me to look at, we talk about the script, and I have these questions I ask, like, because it's money, right? I'm part of what a producer does is spend other people's money.
Yeah.
I'm like a wife, because I don't put out and I spend all their money in a way. So he and I are talking, and he's going to fly to LA to meet me, because before we decide whether or not I'm going to come on as a producer. And the day that he was going to fly to LA was September 1st, 9/11.
Huh.
And he was about to he was going to the airport when everything happened.
Wow.
And he called me on the phone, and he goes, I've never met you. I don't really know anything about you, but I want you to produce this movie. And you have to come to Washington and make this movie with me. So
why Washington? That's just where he was?
They were up, that's where he was.
Right.
We were going to maybe do it in LA.
Yeah.
So I drove up to Washington, got rid of my apartment, packed up my dog, moved to the rural Washington, little Hollywood city girl in rural Washington, and completely dismantled the project and came up with the title and the characters, and we redid the whole thing, and that's how What the Bleep came about.
Wow. Was there any, because I wrote a narrative in my mind about, was there any personal, I'm so happy to hear the story, because another question was going to be like, was there a personal sort of like, you had a breakdown, you got a divorce, and then you wrote the thing, or was it just sounds like a project?
How we ended up doing it was, originally I convinced Will that we should interview people. And it was really funny, because Will's like, all right, you call these people and get the interviews. Now remember, I didn't even know how to spell quantum physics, let alone hold an intelligent conversation about it. So, but I'm a salesperson at heart.
Yeah.
I'm a producer.
Yeah.
So I get on the phone and I start talking to all these different scientists, and like Deepak said no. Elegant Universe dude said no. Like all the mainstream bigger scientists were like, not. And so I was like, okay, well, let's look at some of these other people. And they just started saying yes. And so we went around and we did in all the interviews. And then we had 90 hours of interview footage.
Wow.
And so Will, Mark, and I, but mostly Will, cut that down to like 6 hours. And so then we were sitting there like, well, at that point it was like, we want a host. And I was like, screw the host. We need a story, because if you think about it, Will was like the scientist guy. Mark was like the woo-woo spiritual dude. And I was the audience. Mm-hmm. And I always used to say to them, what the fuck do I know? But this makes no sense, which is how the movie What the Bleep Do We Know? The title came about. Because they always tease me. They're like, what the bleep does Betsy know is the joke. And so we would each interview the scientist. And so Mark would come at it from the spiritual perspective. Will would come at it from the scientific perspective. And I would sit there. I think at one point I thought Fred Allen Wolf was going to punch me, because I was like, I don't understand. Can you explain that to me again? And what? Like, and
which guy is Fred Allen Wolf? Is he the white-haired guy?
Yeah, the white-haired guy sitting in the.
I love that guy.
And I remember I finally understood the Planck scale with John Hagelin, and I got so excited. And there's a really funny video. I don't know where it is anymore. I was like, wait, is this the Planck scale? And I started to explain it to him, and he jumps up and I jump up, and we're like, yes! And like a year and a half in, I think I got it. It was just a really funny moment. So the one thing I felt strongly was if you want people to relate to this movie, because at heart I'm a storyteller, whether I'm making porn or I'm making What the Bleep. At the end of the day, you have to reach people's hearts.
Yeah.
It's great that you can intellectualize concepts and you can explain the inner workings of the universe.
That's right.
But if it doesn't reach my heart,
nobody cares.
Doesn't matter.
That's right.
It's just data and information.
That's right.
So I think my personal contribution was that I was very passionate about making sure whatever we were talking about or whatever concept we were explaining had relevance to me that I could walk out of the movie theater and use instantaneously.
Now, on that point, porn.
Also useful. And they both have a DP.
I just want to ask, this is the best news. Thank you for being who you are. I gotta know. Now I just gotta know. I do comedy. You have to help me. How did you wind up working in porn?
So my dear friend, I didn't go to college. And so I was a kid actress. I ended up working.
You were on Charles in Charge, as my research shows.
Oh, I did not know that. What?
Such a random life. It's so weird. I look back and I go, this is why I know this shit is a hologram. Because if you look at my existence, sometimes people can never they're like, yeah. So anyway, it's been awesome though. I've had the best life. It's so much fun. But so I ended up did this short film, and I met this guy, and he had been hired by Playboy they were just launching a cable channel. And he had been hired by Playboy to develop programming and produce programming for their new channel. And I was at that time basically like a production manager. And so I started working with him. And I got to tell you, the money was mind-blowingly good. And so I did like Hot Rocks with Jenny McCarthy before she moved on to be a VJ. Like I did a series with her. I did Playmate of the Year specials. I did their softcore. I moved into their softcore movies. I produced a bunch of their movies. It just once you get hooked into a company, I was like always there. And so that was the beginning. And then from there, you start meeting all those people.
Yeah.
And then from the kind of soft but sexy, I did a series called Night Calls. My friend Eric, the guy that hired me, he and I claim that we produced the first spiritual porn because we sent 2 porn stars on a spiritual quest. It's called Night Calls the movie. And we weren't even spiritual then. We just thought it was funny. But once you get into that group, then you start meeting, regular porn people. Okay. And the money's amazing.
Well, that's my other question for you. When I lived in LA, I kept meeting a lot of people in porn and get this crazy story. One time, and then I have a question about it. Well, let me ask you the question first. The question is, my impression is that porn actors actually make shit money, and that the ones I kept meeting were they'd be like, yeah, I'm killing it. I'm pulling in $150K a year. And I'd be like, that's it? If you're boning every day, I want you to be making $500K at least. The $150.
Yeah, there's 2 levels. I mean, I kind of was lucky. I worked with some pretty high-end porn stars.
Yeah.
I worked, but it's I used to do a series for Playboy called Strip Search, and we would travel all around the world and the country and look for strippers. But we always had a headliner with us. So the headliner, can go into a strip club and make 20 grand in a night.
Right, right.
But then you've got everybody else. I mean, there's always the story, the strippers are there because they're all trying to go to med school, blah, blah, blah. Just like any industry, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Of course.
And, I've certainly seen it all. But from my perspective, it was always good money. And
so the
I always got to work.
Actors you were working with were doing fucking great.
Yeah. I mean, there's one of the characters in my book is kind of based on one of the female porn stars that I used to know because she was awesome. She used to be a school teacher.
Oh, I love it.
She became really famous as a porn star.
Get this crazy story. One day I'm in a I want to say a coffee bean in the valley, in a rando part of the valley. When you go north into the valley and then you're
yeah, that's Chatsworth. That's the porn capital of the world.
And then you're I don't even know if humans live here. And it's just strip malls and terribleness. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I'm in a coffee bean in that part of town and I meet a girl. I was looking to maybe move to a different part of town. I meet a girl. She goes, yeah, in a coffee shop. She goes, yeah, I have a room and it's high ceilings and it's stupid cheap and it's in this big house. And she shows me a picture and it's like a mansion and it's a gorgeous house. And I'm looking for a room and sure, I'll go see it. So I follow her. She's in her Toyota Tercel and I follow her to her mansion. I get to the mansion. It's a mansion. It's gorgeous. It's very 80s. Look like a lot of 80s cocaine sex happened there. And I'm like, it's white. I'm from Miami. So like 80s cocaine is like right up my alley. Anyway, I get in and it's everything's white, but glass and big windows. And she shows me the room and the room is great. Anyway, we have a long chit chat. I almost rent this room in the house. And at the end of the chit chat, it's revealed, oh, okay, they shoot porn here. And she's the main lady who's, I don't know, somehow she's wound up in this house and this is where they shoot and she does a lot of porn. And I go, okay, cool. And I sit with that and time goes by and I don't know. The truth is I didn't want to live that far north in the valley. I was like, I don't want to fucking live up there. The house was really hard to turn down though. And it was stupid cheap. I don't know why. Anyway.
Because they make money shooting porn there.
Right. They don't need my fucking $400. They were charging like nothing. Anyway, cut to like 9 months later. Maybe a year later. I'm dating a comedian, which is essentially like doing porn. I'm dating a comedian, and he, time goes by. We're getting closer and closer. He's my boyfriend now. We're sharing stories of like, I was like, so tell me the craziest sexual situation you've ever got. We're having one of those conversations. And he's like, well, this is embarrassing. You might judge me. And I go, I doubt it. Go ahead. What do you got? Like, I come from like drug addiction and alcohol recovery. And, nothing scares me. So I go ahead, lay it on me. And he goes, well, one time I met this porn actress. This porn star, this actor, whatever you call porn actor. And she was hot and we met in a bar and she said, you want to go fuck? And I said, sure. And then we went back to this house in Chatsworth and it was this big white house and there was cocaine mirrors everywhere. And I go, what? And I go, was it Jenny Smith or whatever the fuck her name was? And he goes, you fucking know Jenny Smith? And I go, I almost rented a room for her, the house with the white, with the thing. And he was like, oh yeah, we boned a bunch of times. He said, one time I went over there, we had sex. And he said, I counted. It was the fewest amount of words I've ever exchanged between two humans in any 6-hour period of time. He's like, I got there. Nobody spoke. We boned. We ate. We boned again. I left. I think maybe we said 3 words the whole time. And I was like, I know that girl. I know her.
It's an interesting. It's people are interesting. I love Chatsworth. I actually lived up near Chatsworth for a while because they have some good schools there. So they've got porn and decent schools.
Really?
Yeah. So there's some nice houses up there, and then Granada Hills back up there. Yeah, I lived back there.
It's all about property taxes. So whatever it takes.
Oh, that's a good point.
Big space. You got
lot of space. That was what I liked about it.
Yeah, my really good friends bought a house that was totally a porn house. It had like a grotto and like a rock, like hot tub and everything. When they bought it, I was like, "This is full on a porn house," and they're like, "Totally."
Let's get
I just
real.
want to insert a time check.
Yes, thank you.
We have about 35 minutes left in our 2-hour time slot that we set out.
Okay.
Oh, wow. We've been yammering about porn.
Well,
here we are thinking we're going to talk about spirituality, and now we're talking about porn.
Well, it's all one. So how about at 2:30 we'll open your records and we'll dive into your questions.
See what my records are.
Yeah, we'll get in there. So what was I going to say? The thing about, I don't know why I'm saying this, but I have a fantasy.
Speaking of porn.
I'm going to tell you speaking of porn, I personally wouldn't want to do porn, but like one of my sexual fantasies is legit about being a porn star. And but it's very specific and I think it's entertaining. So I'm going to share it with you now. I have this image in my mind. I like the idea that there's a bouncer at my bedroom door. So where I'm in the bed with whoever I'm with, but in my mind, there's a bouncer at the door and he's got a line of dudes like down the hallway. And
Betsy, have you shot this film at this point?
I might have.
Wait.
I was going to say, what do the guides say about this? But
we'll get there. I'll ask them. No. So they're in the hallway, the dudes, and it's later in the night. And so the price has gone up. And so if you want to, here's what you can do. You can come in one at a time. You're each going to go down on Katie. That's all that's going to happen. You are going to pay to come in and go down on Katie. Now, it was $5,000 earlier in the night for each of you, but now we're at 10. And so it's 10 grand per person that you give us. And then what happens is the bouncer puts the cash or shows me the Venmo on the nightstand. So I'm aware that whoever's with me now, the next guy is about to pay another 10 and then another 10. So I'm adding up how many dudes are in the hallway. And that turns me on a whole lot.
Wow. We could really think about and analyze that one. I don't know. Like, you got me. We should make it. I mean, what else are we going to do at this
Let's
point?
write that script, Katie.
We should write that script.
I find it.
We could make it really.
You could shoot it tastefully.
You could shoot it tastefully and then really think about, well, what does each man represent? Why is it that they're only going down on you? What does the money represent? You mean, you can have some, deep revelations around
Girl,
it. Think about it.
I've meditated on it, sat with it, asked the records about. I'm like so clear on what it all is for me. But either way, you can make a very interesting film about like whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fun thing that I like about being able to talk, I love being able to talk about sex and porn and the taboo stuff, and I do it all the time, which flips out a lot of the sort of like Puritan woo-woo people, because I think part of our issue is that we're afraid to talk about stuff, and everything becomes so taboo, and
precious.
Then we become inhibited, and that's where the fear comes in, and that's where the insecurity comes in, and that's where the stuff, like, I mean.
Well, not to mention that something I know from so look, I have like the history I have, but I also have like 3 healing schools under my belt, high level esoteric teachings from like masters in Jerusalem. Like I've done a lot of like training and all this kind of stuff, right? So one thing I know is that sex and orgasm are in fact a quick way to know the divine, and that when you can actually harness your sexual energy, and Kundalini is real, and you can do exercises, and Tantra is real, My point being, like, I've had periods of time in my life where the sex I was having with who I was having it with moved me forward on the spiritual path quite clearly. Like I needed to have sex with that person to raise the energy here, to break through a block I had here that busted this thing open, that then brought more God light into my body. There is no separation. God doesn't make a race of humans with bodies that want to fuck each other to punish them. Right? Why would it do that?
Although I often, twice now at least, have railed against the concept that I have to give birth. So I was a little bit like, dude, we could have worked that out a little bit, honey. Like,
that's funny.
That's not cool.
Well, I give you credit for bothering with that, because I will not be making any people.
I made 2 people, and I got to tell you, man, fuck, it is rough. Like I got 2 teenagers, and they're like, they're conscious. They're opinionated. They have been taught to question everything. I forgot to say, except your mother.
Oh, fuck.
And they're powerful beings. And
how old are they?
My daughter is 16 and my son is about to be 13.
I pray for you. I worship you.
They currently hate me, but that's okay. My daughter hated me and hated all this woo-woo stuff. And last night I woke up in the middle of the night because I heard her talking, and she was in the middle of doing some ritual. So there
of course.
I'm like, hey, can you keep it down? And then she's probably thinking in her head, like, what kind of mom walks in on her kid at 3 a.m. doing some ritual and just asks her to be quiet? Like, what I mean? Like,
totally.
Cool. Can you keep it down?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to sleep.
Right.
Please,
Go ahead.
Don't burn the house down.
Channel those entities.
Whatever you're doing. Cool.
And are you using the last of our salt? Because we're going to need that casserole tomorrow.
Yeah. It's a challenge, and it's not for everybody. And a lot of my friends have chosen not to have kids. And I always knew that I joke, and I like parenting is painful and hard, but I love parenting. I know pretty clearly that I was meant to have this experience.
I hear that. A lot of people, I think if you're a parent and you don't have that knowing, I worry about those kids. So I feel like if you're going to parent, it's great. That's how you want to feel, right? I have to pee desperately. Can you guys wait 1 minute and we'll come back and open your records, Betsy? Thanks for your patience.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
We'll talk about you while you're gone.
Desperate pee need.
I have to say, Betsy, as soon as you lit up your cigarette, I smelled it. It was the weirdest thing. the first time. I was like, who's smoking a cigarette in my house? Because I know the smell of that particular cigarette, maybe.
So the reason that I smoke, first of all, I've smoked since I was like 20. But it was very funny because I filmed a section of the Bleep in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in Mozambique. So we filmed in Mozambique, and then we were coming home, and one of the companies that was doing all the brain animation was in Cape Town.
Uh-huh.
And so we filmed in those days, and even now we have to film what's called plates. So if you remember the shot in the Bleep where the shaman comes up and hits Marley in the center eye, and there's that big beach, and it kind of has this crazy zoom in shot. Like, the story of how that was shot is hilarious, but we shot it in Mozambique because the company that was doing that piece of the effects was in Cape Town. So I had to go. So we filmed that, and then they needed me to just hang out for like 4 days while they were doing some work before I could go and start approving animations. So I went on a safari. I was like, why not? So I went to Kruger National Park, and they hired this guy, this crazy South African guy named Dutch. He was just like quintessential crazy South African guy named Dutch. Like, if just imagine the outrageousness. And so we saw the lions, and like we did all the stuff. And my ex-husband is a chiropractor and a healer, and he really wanted to meet like a real shaman. So I said to Dutch, we want to like go to a village and meet a real shaman. And he said, okay, cool. And so he takes us to this village, which turns out to be like a tourist village where they like do the dances, and then they usher you into like a store to buy the baskets and the drums. And so we were kind of like, whatever, we were looking around the store, and out of nowhere, this little boy comes running up and starts grabbing my hand and speaking to me, Missy, 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 Missy. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And so he speaks to Dutch. And I said, Dutch, he's like, no, shoot. And I'm like, don't shoot him, boy. I want to know what he wants. Like, why did this kid come running up to me? And he's like, nothing. I'm like, Dutch, I want to know what he said. He goes, the shaman from his village wants to meet you. And I said, of course the shaman from the village wants to meet me. That's what I told you. So let's go. And he's like, you can't go back. They're going to rob you and kidnap you. I'm like, I don't fucking have anything. And I'm totally going. So my husband at the time and I huffed like a quarter of a mile back into this fucking bush, me with like my purse, my little flip-flops, huffing back. And we come to like a village, a real village now. And it's the trippiest thing because it's like house, hut, like real house. I mean, it's just weird. It's like old meets new. It's just kind of all mixed hodgepodge together. And at the end of this little village, there's a little like hut with the shaman dude with like missing teeth and like a Nike shirt on. And on the front porch was this old, do you remember those old fashioned Coca-Cola coolers? And they had Coca-Cola all over them. And so I walk up with my husband, and he looks at me and he nods and he says something to Dutch, which apparently translated to, Betsy, your husband's going to go in with the shaman. You please sit on the porch and have a Coca-Cola. And I open it up, and it's like the good kind, like the Mexican Coca-Cola in the little bottles. And I was like, I sit on this friggin' chair, I open that Coca-Cola, and I light a cigarette, and I am like, this is the greatest moment of my life right here. I'm in the middle of the African bush, drinking a Coca-Cola, having a cigarette. And so they do whatever they do, in my husband and the shaman dude, and they come out. And I'm like, okay, let's go. And the shaman dude says something to Dutch, because I'm not exactly sure what language they were speaking. So anyway, so Dutch turns to me and he says, the shaman says, don't ever let them make you quit smoking. And I said, okay, why? And he said, because you travel between both worlds. You are a dancer, and you are a bridge. You are a communicator. You translate the spirit world into a language that people can understand. And the only way that you'll stay grounded is if you smoke. And so I was like, there you go. So that's why I smoke.
Okay, that's amazing. I have run into a lot of people who work in high vibe context who smoke for grounding. It's kind of a common thing with like healers and woo-woo people because they don't want to, like I overeat to ground. I'll be like pizza. And then that brings me back in the body or whatever. But certain people, the way they work or how their nervous system is or whatever the fuck, they can't, it's too dense, the food, and it brings them heavier than they want to feel. So they smoke for grounding. In fact, I was just at a retreat with a woman who really takes a lot to impress me at this point with like physical woo-woo magic, but she really was the real deal in Sedona. We had a whole week with her. Anyway, she smokes this like, you know, Cherokee blend of herbal, this with tobacco, that wood chips, da-da-da. And I asked her about it and she's like, yeah, I can barely keep any food down at this point. She's just like a full body channel. So she's got a whole other thing going on. And she's like, but I can smoke and it keeps me here, keeps me grounded, makes everything work.
I mean, it's funny, like I can go hours, like if I'm with my kids and stuff, I don't need to smoke, but if I'm going to write or I'm going to work or I'm going to just think, I'll, you know, keeps me here in this reality. So what's up with my records?
So
what do they at? What do my bitches have to say?
All right. What's your full legal name that shows up on your driver's license?
Oh my God. I have to tell you that? Elizabeth Elise Chasse.
We can beep it if you need us to.
Elizabeth Elise Chasse. All right. So I'm going to close my eyes like woo-woo people do sometimes. And I'm going to say this prayer out loud. And it's going to open me into your records. And then I'll let you know the records are open. And then you can ask whatever the hell you want to ask. Okay, look, just for a little context, everybody's different with how they quote unquote read the records. Some people see like a literal book and they're seeing literal records and they're filtering through pages. And some people see like a hall of mirrors. And for me, it's a realm of consciousness within which it's like a high vibrational realm of the divine. So when we're in there, I just have access to whatever they want to show me, the beings of light that are individuated aspects of God who have chosen to take on the task of keeping track of your life history. And everybody has a bunch of beings of light that have chosen to, have this information. And
I'm with you.
Okay. So I'll close my eyes and let's see. Do we need to know? Shall we? Yes. All right. We're going to start right with the prayer. Sometimes they want me to take people through a little meditation, but not today. Correct? Correct. All right. So if you could for me, Elizabeth Elise Chasse, Betsy, breathe a little bit consciously into the low belly. That will help me drop into you a little more fully. Just breathing into the low belly. Thank you. Feel the bottoms of your feet on the ground.
Oh, I have to put my feet on the ground. Hang on.
Or visualize it for me, either way. Good. Last piece. See the midline from the root up to your head. See that midline opening up infinitely above you and widening like an opening channel that receives light. And so we do acknowledge the forces of light. Asking for guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth as it is revealed for our highest good and the highest good of everyone connected to us. Holy Spirit of God, protect me from all forms of self-centeredness and direct my attention to the work at hand. Help me to know Elizabeth Elise Chasse in the light of the Akashic Records, to see Elizabeth Elise Chasse through the eyes of the Lords of the Records. And enable me to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones of Elizabeth Elise Chasse have for Elizabeth Elise Chasse. And just give me a moment. I'm going to go quiet for a second. Wow. Okay. All right. And so I'm asking now consciously in my own voice for the Lords, Masters, and Teachers of the Akashic Records, for Elizabeth Elise Chasse, to open me as deeply as possible into her records now, that I may deliver clear guidance from you guys, the record keepers, the divine, the source of all that is, for her highest good, for her informational purposes. And if is there information to share first? Is there energy to transmit first? No. So we can go to the questions in just a second. So there's a really interesting image though. Let me just sit with this for a second. Is that hers? Yes. Wow. All right. In brief, I'll just share with you one thing. I'm often given just one piece of information or just some images or whatever right when we tap in. With you, there's this image of, you know what it looks like. If you think of like the image of the figure eight, okay, but if the figure eight kept going in a repeated way, kind of like the double helix of DNA. Mm-hmm. If you're looking at the image of double helix from the front, it looks like two lines that cross like this, back and forth, and keeps going up. There is that double helix running through the middle of you and then repeated infinitely back in time and space. Like the way that when you look in a mirror, but there's a mirror behind you and you can see infinite repetition of the same image. And it's so clear and strong that I'm just going to ask what that is. If you know anything about it, feel free to share, Betsy, but I'll ask the record keepers here, like, what the fuck is that? Yeah. So what is that? Is that the history of, is that a lineage? It's about a lineage of shamanic wisdom keepers. That is the flame of the light of the truth of consciousness. That is the representation of the way that you are a portal between worlds. And it's in your lineage. It goes back and back and back and back and back and back and back. Of course, there were those of you in the family who denied it and disregarded it, and it was unsafe to believe it or know it or see it. Wow, that is really strong. It's also, they're saying, it's like, it's just the frequency that you vibrate as shown to me in visual form. And then it has something to do with your actual DNA being different. Your DNA, let's see. Yeah, your DNA is oh boy, not exactly human. Like you guys have replicated human DNA quite effectively because you knew you had to be here on this planet. But it's certainly multidimensional and then some. Allah. Additionally, oh man, you're vibrating at such a high frequency of light that it's very intense for you in a body, and it's very intense for the people who come into your orbit because what you're being and what you're transmitting is not of this world. So do you know what I mean when we say that you've replicated human DNA in a pretty convincing way? Does that make sense? Or shall we elaborate?
Yeah, no, I understand. It leads to my question,
okay,
which is interesting.
All right, let's do it.
So my first question is, I'm tired. I feel way too much resistance for the job at hand. And have reached a point where I need to decide if I continue or I retreat.
Okay. And what is the job at hand, if you don't mind?
The job at hand is exactly what you've been talking about. Continue to be the voice or a translator, or to bring the message forth, because these messages are harder and harder to bring forth. And I'm tired. I've been doing it for a long ass time, and I'm kind of done. And I'm like, if this is going to continue to be this hard, I'm going to retire and go live in the jungle and quit.
Ooh, that I gotta tell you. Okay, so that's that energy. When you say, I'm going to retire and go to the jungle and quit, that energy matches the frequency of who you are now. The up-levelings you've experienced, received, and become, and have embodied, they match the frequency of live in the jungle. Now, it's like this. Is it like give up the full, this is big, Betsy. This is big. Thank you for honoring me with this question, because it's not a small question. It's a big fat yes when you say give up and go to the jungle. Now, of course, don't understand or get confused about this as some failure. What this is this is about This is similar. I relate to this. Many people who do their work relate to this. You get to a place vibrationally where you can no longer energetically stand to be in the presence of such low frequency energy around you. That's not pretense and that's not superiority. That's just survival. When you're in the swamp of LA, they're saying, the swamp, you are in competition culture. You are in, they're showing it to me like dense, thick mud of people competing and winning and striving and pushing and money and trying. That's not what your soul is about anymore. They're also very clear. You're going to create a bunch of stuff. You're not done creating. It's just that it's got to come a different way now. It's got to come as a simple, direct, channeled thing. It just slides out of you. It goes whoop, like an easy baby birth with a big open vagina. It just slips right out. No more wrestling with the people, making it push, do, try. You must surrender to the alignment you are with the energy of consciousness. And the reason the jungle calls, as I'm sure you're aware, is because the jungle is awake.
Right.
The jungle is earth. The jungle is aliveness. The jungle is Mother Gaia, Sophia Gaia. You're going to do you ever done any ayahuasca?
Yes.
Okay. You're going to do more. And there's more to see and know. And you are vibrating at that frequency, but trying to live in a concrete jungle. It doesn't match anymore. So you will create. It's not the end of creating. It's the end of this way of creating in this particular context. It's time for a new environment, a new energy field. You know, you understand as well as anyone during this crazy, quote unquote, time and human life, consciousness, corona, that what's occurring here is fast up-leveling. So for folks who are fastly already up-leveled, you're going to take it to a wackadoo level now because you can't avoid it anymore. Now, you could avoid it, but it will kill your physical body.
Right. That's what I know. Can I make it 5 years?
No. Do you need to?
I'm got to finish raising my kids to 18.
Well, would you be willing to change the framework of how they get raised?
I don't really know how to do that since they're basically they're kind of their only caregiver.
Yeah. I mean,
one's going to be 2 years out of high school and then the other one is 5 years.
Yeah. Is the female or the male 5 years?
Male.
Okay. How much do you think he would hate living in the jungle?
A lot. I already took them to the jungle. I tried.
Yeah.
I think he'd be more flexible. Well, like maybe I could go to Maui with him.
Oh, that reads.
Like I could go, he doesn't have to live in LA. So it's really only 2 years for the daughter.
All right. Can she make it 2 years? They're like, just barely. But they're like, please, beloved. You know that the divine just loves the shit out of us, right?
Right.
It's talking to you like, honey, beloved, please. Yes, your children are everything to you. And you are everything to us. Please don't kill the vessel of you in the name of these other humans.
No, I get it. I'm going to make it 2 years. I'll make it the 2 years and then my son and I will move to Maui. That feels good.
Hallelujah.
That feels good to me too. I can do that.
Okay.
Or the woods up in Washington, somewhere.
Okay, great.
Those are good places. All right. I only have one other question if you have time, which is I have this book, Killing Buddha, which I love and I'm really passionate about. It's just not moving forward right now. Should I let it go or should I push it forward?
When you say push it forward, what do you mean specifically? The writing or the producing or the
writing's done, publishing.
Oh, great. Publishing. Well, interesting. Okay. So it's definitely not let it go, which is interesting. What it is it's an aspect of this. Okay. You can think of this time period, these 2 years. And actually, they're telling me it might be a little less than 2 years. Like you'll be researching places and you'll go visit. And about 1 year and 3/4, you'll be like, okay, peace. You can think of this time period as practicing being more in flow, the kind of flow where like work less hard at pushing it forward, but keep pushing it forward. It's about how you're pushing
Right.
it forward, not about stopping pushing it forward.
That's exactly what I'm doing. Cool.
Great. Yeah. So that's it. It's definitely got to come out, and it's going to come out. There's definitely an interested party or parties.
Yeah.
Where do you have any other, there's more.
You can tell me more. I don't have any more questions specifically.
Okay. Are there two publishers? Like, what's the situation right now with?
It's at a couple publishers who are interested, and I don't know what's happening, and it's just kind of stalled right now. And I could publish it myself if I want to, but I want a publisher to do all the heavy lifting. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. They're like, don't do that. You don't need to do that. Okay. So let me look at, why is it a little stalled at the moment? Yeah, this is, let me just listen. This is about the stalledness of the people involved and the companies. The companies are a little freaked out because human beings are freaked out about everything that's happening. So there's just people freaking out, not sure, this, that, can we, can't we, money, not money. People are like at home and they're going, I'm talking about at the publishing companies, and they're going like, well, I'm at home, and they're just all freaked out. It's not about the project and it not wanting to go forward. It's just about honestly, this is what they're saying, the difficulty of the astrology right now. The astrology is fucked right now. They're saying it's like World War II and like Nazi Germany were the last time the astrology was this bad. But this time it's like global and hitting everybody. So yeah, it's worse in a way. So anyway, people are freaked out. The book is moving forward. I get that there's three? It's two publishers that are both like pretty damn interested. And you may wind up in a bidding war, like not a war, but like a bidding debate thing. Cool. So you're in good shape.
Good. All right, good. Because that's my retirement to buy my place in Maui.
Yeah, I hear that.
That's what,
One other thing, it's very easy. They want me to use the word easy, fluid, receptive, open to read you. Like your field is so expanded and open. It's just nice to be in here. It's easy to read you. It's very fast. It's very intense, and it's very open and it moves. It's like air that moves. It's not like a stagnant. People who've just done nothing, their field can feel like a tight, slow, stagnant, concrete pavement river. You're like with no form and structure left, which, by the way, that's the whole thing that's dying in consciousness is form and structure. And you already get that at the DNA level. You're like, there is no form and structure. I'm living as no form, no structure. And yet in this 3-dimensional reality, you got to like make money and buy houses and stuff. And you understand the relationship between those two, that seeming paradox. And you're just dancing inside of it and playing the game as it needs to be played.
Exactly.
One more piece, and then they're like, that's all we have to deliver, is we would like you to take a little bit gentler care of your physical form. They're like, please be careful of the temple, because, the temple holds the spirit and we need you around for some time here. So please be kinder to the temple. Maybe less harsh versions of what you're already doing, just a little less harsh.
A hummingbird is about to land on my lap, like literally. I don't know if you saw him.
What?
Hi, hummingbirds.
No.
He popped in.
Hey, buddy.
Wow.
Namaste. Hallelujah. Hello.
I'm just started working on that and taking better care. Yes.
Okay.
That was great.
Yeah, well, great. Okay, hallelujah. All right, what time is it? Okay, we're perfect. Let me close the records real quick, just so we stay grounded a little bit. Thank you, thank you, thank you, all the beings of light, and for Betsy's whole field. What a fun field to sit in. Thank you, thank you. Divine Mother, Father, all that is. They're like, get ready for more ayahuasca. They keep saying that. Thank you, Mother Ayahuasca. Thank you, Earth. All right, I ask that you return all of Betsy's energy, Elizabeth Elise Chasse's energy to herself now, please. Return all of her energy to herself now, and return us all to our complete human wholeness. Return us all to our complete human wholeness. Divine portal and the Akashic records for Elizabeth Elise Chasse are now closed. Amen. The divine portal and the Akashic records for Elizabeth Elise Chasse are now closed. The divine portal and the Akashic records for Elizabeth Elise Chasse are now closed. Amen, amen, amen. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammad abduhu wa rasulullah. Thank you. Done.
Cool.
Oh my God.
Girl, what a freaking treat to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us.
It was fun. Thank you. It was a lot of fun. Let me
Good.
know where.
Oh,
Yeah, as the
good.
outside observer, I feel like Katie and Betsy, you guys just need to kick it together. You guys.
Right?
Where are you?
I'm in Benicia, California, NorCal.
All right.
And Cass is in Oakland.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
when the world will let us travel more, we'll do Aya together. It'll be fun.
Ah,
Oh my God. Oh my
I'm
God.
going.
Oh God. That would just fuck me so
Right.
bad. I'm so open
Yeah.
already.
I don't know that I ever. I mean, okay, I'm open to it, but I don't. I don't know. It was the one time. It was,
There may be a time where you're just like, oh, okay, today's
yeah.
the day.
I like Pachuma or some of the softer stuff now. I kind of, but yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Thank
Let me know
you.
when this is going to air or where it's going to, so I can share it.
We will.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks,
Thank you.
Betsy.
Bye.
All right. Take care. Bye. What an amazing life. What a wonderful person. Like, what a
Yeah.
cool set of things she's done.
Yeah.
I don't know. I relate to the whole porn and then spirit thing. Like, I have my own versions
Right.
of that,
It
know?
totally fits.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed hanging out for that. That was cool.
Sweet.
Yeah. I don't know if we have anything else to say. Desmond is off the line now, but he'll be back. But he said we could just sign off when we are done. It'll be fine.
All right. That's beautiful. Do your work.
You do your work.
You do your fucking work.
Do the fucking work.
Work your work, bitch. Bye.
What are you asking for? All of the answers? Say what? All of the answers? Yeah, all the answers.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. We'd love to hear from you. Please email us with your questions so that we have questions to answer in the Akashic Records. Our email address is allanswerspod@gmail.com. That's allanswerspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to find us on Facebook or Twitter, it's @allanswerspod, @allanswerspod. Thank you.
They're like, how do we make our blah blah blahs more blah 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 and cut this, what I'm saying right now?
That was a Sounds Awesome production.